In a moment, my life turned upside down when my husband's angry voice came through the phone. "Why do you always fall apart when I need you?" he complained, not caring that I was at the hospital, worried about our unborn baby. "We're here, hungry, waiting for your terrible cooking, and you're relaxing in the hospital," he continued, showing no concern. He told me he had enough and was going to eat out with his parents, leaving me to find my way home. His anger hit me hard, especially with all the fear I felt for our baby. I used to be a passionate salesperson, known for my hard work and awards. I loved my job and felt confident. Meeting my husband felt like a fairy tale, and we quickly fell in love and married. But when I found out I was pregnant, I had to leave my job to avoid the risk of miscarriage. It was a tough decision, but I thought it was for the best. As my pregnancy went on, my husband's support disappeared. What once seemed like a partnership now felt like a struggle. "Where's my lunch?" he'd ask, only to criticize the simple sandwiches I made. He dismissed my struggles, saying, "Pregnancy is not an illness," leaving me to handle everything on my own. The man I fell in love with was no longer the same. He stopped going to doctor appointments with me and didn't help with chores, even though they became harder for me. Our home, once filled with love, felt more like a battlefield, and I was trying to protect both myself and our baby. Maybe he was just tired. He had taken on more work at his job, which made him irritable. I kept telling myself things would get better when the baby came, that we'd find a way to adjust, but the situation between us didn't improve. Adding to the stress, my in-laws started showing up unannounced, making me feel even more overwhelmed. They criticized our home and acted like I should be doing more for them. They never seemed happy with what I did, and my husband always sided with them. I felt like nothing I did was ever good enough. One day, after I was sent out to buy groceries while heavily pregnant, I collapsed from exhaustion. I woke up in the hospital, relieved that our baby was fine. The doctors told me I needed rest. When I saw missed calls from my husband, I thought he must be worried, but when I called him back, he was angry, not caring that I was in the hospital. "Where have you been?" he yelled, making it clear he was more upset about his inconvenience than my health. I told him I had collapsed from overexertion and was being treated, but his response was cold and impatient. "You collapsed, and I'm supposed to care? Why don't you answer when I call?" he snapped. His words hurt, and I feared the negativity might harm our baby. "Please stop yelling. It's not good for the baby," I begged, but he just kept going. "We're starving here, waiting on your terrible cooking, and you're just relaxing in the hospital." He even told me he was going to eat out with his parents and leave me on my own. I ended the call, not wanting to expose my baby to more harsh words. I sat there, feeling completely alone and heartbroken. Then, just as I felt the weight of everything, I heard a familiar, comforting voice. "Are you okay?" It was Helen, a former customer who had become a friend. I was so relieved to see her. "Helen, it's really you. I'm so glad you remember me." I felt a sense of warmth and comfort in her presence. Helen had been through her own struggles, having lost her confidence after a divorce. I remembered helping her with makeup, which had given her a boost. Over time, we became friends, but she had stopped coming to the store years ago. Now, she was here, a reminder of kindness when I needed it the most. Helen explained that she had been abroad for work and had only just returned. She laughed, saying she was glad to be back, even though she had recently been diagnosed with appendicitis. Despite everything, she seemed upbeat, making me smile. Helen's visit lifted my spirits, and as we caught up, she noticed I was upset. "You don't have to share if you're not ready, but I could tell something was wrong," she said gently. Trusting her completely, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I shared with Helen how hard things had become with my husband and in-laws. I was scared of raising my child in an environment where I was constantly hurt, and without my job, the idea of living on my own with a baby felt very overwhelming. To my surprise, Helen offered to help. "I have an apartment you can use," she said kindly. "It's a small, comfortable 2-bedroom with its own bathroom, soundproof walls, and it's in a safe area near supermarkets and a police station. You don't need to pay a deposit right away, you can start rent later. It's a great deal. What do you think?" Her warm offer made me laugh in disbelief. I asked, "Are you really sure you can offer it like that?" Helen reassured me, "Absolutely. I trust you will take good care of it. We must help each other when times are tough." I gratefully accepted her generous offer. A few days later, once the doctors said I was well enough, I left the hospital and moved into Helen's apartment without a second thought. Helen had arranged everything over the phone. I didn't return to the house I once shared with my husband because it felt empty and unkind. Helen also introduced me to a lawyer who had helped her before, which gave me the strength to decide to divorce my husband. One day, when I left the hospital, I saw my husband waiting for me. My heart pounded, and although I tried to run, my pregnancy slowed me down. He grabbed my arm and demanded to know about the lawyer and our situation. I stood my ground, insisting that any talk of divorce, compensation, or child support would go through the lawyer. He refused to support me and tried to force me back home. Then Rebecca, a young woman, stepped in. She confronted my husband, George, and told him not to take me by force. With the threat of calling the police, she made him back off. When he heard that, he got scared and quickly left. Rebecca then made sure I was okay and even called a taxi to take me home. To my surprise, I learned that Rebecca lived just above me. Rebecca worked at my husband's company. She had reported his inappropriate comments about personal matters, which led to him losing his mentor role and later being transferred to another branch. It turned out Rebecca was Helen's daughter. Helen managed several properties, including the apartment I was staying in, and after learning about George's bad behavior both at work and at home, she had pushed for his transfer. With Helen's strong advice, I decided to move forward with the divorce. In the end, George agreed to the divorce and to pay child support and other damages. Soon after, my in-laws caused more trouble. My father-in-law was overly excited about having a grandson. One day, as I was leaving, he grabbed my arm and demanded that I hand over my baby, saying the child was the family heir. I tried to break free, but his grip was strong. At that moment, Rebecca came to my rescue again. Using her judo skills, she was a top-ranked judoka, she threw my father-in-law away and told him to leave me alone. Rebecca even called the police, and soon sirens were heard. My mother-in-law, who was waiting in the car, watched as the police took my father-in-law away. Later, my mother-in-law decided to divorce him and move back to the countryside to start fresh. George tried to convince his mother to let him stay with her, but she refused. Through the lawyer, my mother-in-law later apologized to me and left some money as a gesture of goodwill. Helen explained that many people feel lost after leaving a marriage, and that the money was meant to help support my son's future. After the divorce was finalized, I gave birth to a healthy boy. My mother-in-law moved to the countryside, and my father-in-law, after being released, discovered that the house was gone. My mother-in-law had demolished it before leaving. He then moved in with George, which only caused more problems, and eventually, George lost his job because of his damaged reputation. Despite everything, I received regular child support payments, which were managed by Helen and the lawyer. Rebecca went on to be recognized at work and became a project leader, admired by her colleagues. Helen's projects, like housing for women and foreigners, were thriving. As for me, once my son was old enough, I planned to go back to work. Helen even offered me a job at a new high-end cosmetics store she was opening. She continued to support me and cared for my son as if he were her own grandchild. Rebecca visited often too. Both of them reminded me of the strength and kindness that helped me through my toughest times. I was determined to be just as strong and protective of my son, inspired by these incredible women. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please like, comment, and subscribe for more great stories. Don't forget to tap the notification bell, so you never miss an update. Share your thoughts in the comments, we love hearing from you. See you next time, and take care.